Okay, so let's keep moving forward, and we're doing another introduction, and this time we're doing an introduction for a table. All right, and our process, our procedure doesn't change. We have a table, and we have to look at the table, and we have to, in the introduction, tell what's the table about. Up here, in this part right here, in the box, you can see this first tells us what it's about. It says the table illustrates the proportion of monthly household income 5 European countries spend on food and drink, housing, clothing, and entertainment. And so we have to look at this gives us the general information of what it's about. But like I told you, we can't repeat that information. We have to also look at the chart. And, there's some other information we can talk about. We can definitely see we have 4 categories or 4 sections. We have 5 countries. So we have to take that information and put it into our own language as much as possible. All right. So here is an example of doing a introduction for this table. All right. So let's have a look at it here. All right, where are we? Okay, so here we go. All right, there we go. And of course, we want to really indent. So it says here we are presented with a table that clearly describes how 5 countries located in Europe utilize their monthly salary to make purchases in 4 separate categories. Okay, so again, we're looking at this is a general description of what this table is about. And so we're saying the same thing that we see here. We're saying the same thing, right? We're given the same information. We're saying the same thing, but we have to do it in our own words. All right. So when I say do it in your own words, that's what I'm talking about. What is this thing right here? No, I don't want autocorrect. I don't know why that's there. Okay. I'm not the best with computer. I don't know what that is, but anyway. All right. So that's our introduction for a table. We can see it's the same thing that we did with the line graph, same thing we did with the multiple chart. We just look at it. We look at everything on the chart. We look at their description, and then we put it into our own words. Okay. So let's move on to the next one now and do another introduction. Okay. So now let's get into writing the overview for the table graph that we have right here. Table. It's not really a table graph, really. It's just a table. It's not really a table graph. All right, it's just a table. And so you can see your teachers make mistakes and little errors here and there, but I correct it. No one's perfect, and you're not expected to be perfect. That's why if you want to, you can get a score of 9, and some people think you have to be perfect for a score of 9. No, you don't. Okay, you're entitled to some mistakes because we're all human. All right, now for the table, we already have the introduction here. And the introduction captures just kind of what it's about. Okay, and now we move on to the general overview. And when we have a general overview, what we're doing is the same process. We're looking at the table, and we're looking at, well, what are our highs and lows? And there are a couple different ways we can do it when we're talking about a general overview. We can look at each category, like food, housing, clothing, and look at the high and low for food, the high and low for housing, the high and low for clothing, the high and low for entertainment. We can do it that way in terms of looking at, in general, what are our highest and our lowest percentages. Okay, so we can take it by category, and if you're going to take it by category and look at in general for each category, these are what our sentences will look like. Basically, in the food category, Spain and Germany occupy the highest and lowest percentages. While in the housing section of spending, these spots are taken by, what's the highest and lowest in the housing? The highest is Germany, and the lowest is Spain. So what we can do here is we can say, well, in the housing section of the spending, we can say we can see a reversal of these spots by Germany and Spain, because Germany is now at the lowest, at the highest in housing, and Spain is at the bottom. All right, so you can see that in this sentence, we covered the high and low for food, we covered the high and low for housing. Okay, and that's why it's really helpful to be able to write compound and complex sentences. It's really, really helpful to be able to do that. If you can accomplish that, you can really be able to cut down on how many sentences you're writing, okay, and be able to show a high level of English writing. Now we're going to move on. Let's take a look at, remember, in the general overview paragraph, we're not talking about percentages. You don't see any numbers yet, right? You don't see any numbers, and you shouldn't be writing any numbers yet. We don't get into the percentages and the numbers until we get to the third and fourth paragraph. I keep harping on that. I keep saying that over and over, but students kind of miss that sometimes. We don't get into the numbers until we get into our third and fourth paragraph. All right, in the second paragraph, in the general overview, keep it general. Okay, keep it general. So with the clothing, we can see what's the low is France for clothing, and the high is Germany. European citizens of France right, so that's a sentence about clothing. Now, some students say, well, can I just write a sentence for each category? What happens is when you're writing too many sentences, you're taking time. Okay, you can't take time. You have to learn how to write compound and complex sentences. Also, because it's going to increase your grade, right? If you're writing all simple sentences, you're going to take a lot of time, okay? And also, you're going to show a lower level of English ability, all right? So you got to mix it up and you got to show variety, okay? In our last sentence, for the general overview, we're looking at entertainment. And in entertainment, we can see that Germany spends the most on entertainment and Turkey spends the least. In the area of entertainment, okay, and we've covered everything. We covered food and housing, we covered clothing, all right, and we covered entertainment. Should be a small e. Right, and there are multiple ways we could do this. Because we see that Germany is the most in 3 different categories, we could have done it that way, right? Another way of writing this overview paragraph, right? Another way of writing this overview paragraph. Let's call this example 1 of the overview paragraph. And now let's look at another way we could have written the overview paragraph here. Example 2 of the overview paragraph. Let's look at another way we could have written the overview paragraph in terms of as a second example. We could write all right in the categories of housing, clothing, and entertainment. The Germans spend more than the citizens of any other country. Right? We got that? Okay. And then we can move on and talk about our bottom now. We can talk about, however, when it comes to what's the other category? Clothing. France clothing, France has the lowest percentage France has the lowest percentage and for entertainment. We can find Turkey in this position. As a final point, Spain spends the highest amount for food and the least in housing. Okay? So there we have two examples of doing the overview paragraph. Okay? Those are our two examples of doing it. Both work and both of these examples capture the general information that we see, in the general information that we see in the table here. Okay? And it's a really good example of really how to do it. Okay? And one of the benefits of doing this course is you get to send me an example for a task number 1 for me to look at. You get to send one example of a task number 1 for me to look at and make sure you're doing it correctly. And you also get an opportunity to send me an example of your task number 2 to look at and see if you're doing it correctly. So that's a difference in terms of our course, is we actually will look at your examples and be able to tell you if you're doing it correctly or not. And we also have peer review, where you're able to submit your examples for peer review, and your peers will help you to examine to see if you're doing it correctly. Okay? All right. So let's stop and move on to another general overview.